Character design is so fun, but it can also be really hard, especially when we're trying to design VTubers. There's just so much going on here. You might have been in this situation before. You're designing a character, but it ends up looking bland. So you try to add more details, but now the design is too busy and overbearing. How can you fix this? Finding the right balance can be difficult. That's exactly what Circle struggled with when he made this VTuber design right here. So how can we make this design more clear and successful? And what should you pay attention to when designing characters in general? Today, I'm going to fix this character design and give you some useful tips on how to make your characters more cohesive, iconic, and appealing. A huge part of character design is visual storytelling. So let's start by looking at what Circle's character is about. So this is Circle's character, Lys. Lys is a siren that was betrayed by their brethren and adopted by humans. And here is Lys's profile. She's bubbly, free-spirited, loves to sing. Her hobbies include music, woodwork, and cooking, and she has a troubled past that she's trying to fix it. And she's basically a weeb, apparently. She likes music and she loves humans. So I suppose that she is an idol, right? And I think it's pretty clear from her design that she is an idol. We got the microphone here, we got the ribbons, so she gives a kind of an idolish vibe, and also a sea creature vibe, with kind of like a sea angel and sea slug vibe. That's what I'm getting from her right now, and she's really, really cute. So I think this is already a pretty successful design, but we could make it better. I would say that Circle did an incredible job of designing an appealing character and getting the idea of a siren idol across. However, while Lys is very cute, this design has an issue. It lacks direction and is a bit over-designed. But wait, hang on, that's not actually always a problem. Remember that you're always designing for a reason. If it's an original character, the most important thing is that you love the design and have fun drawing it. So what if it lacks direction? What does that even mean? However, if you're looking to have a broadly appealing VTuber design, then you might have to pay a bit more attention to certain things. My main concern here is that even though every individual element I think is really well done, I think her hair color, her hairstyle, and her outfit is really cute. But I think there's a few too many opposing ideas right now pulling at each other. From the ribbons, we get a kind of like an idol vibe, right? However, from the crop top and the tights, there's kind of a sporty vibe that goes with these big chunky sneakers as well. And when it comes to shape design, it's kind of a little bit all over the place. You got these like claw-like shapes over here. You got some little frills over here. It's just not entirely very cohesive. It was clear that to improve this character design, I would have to hone in on its main concepts. The character's outfit was being pulled in too many directions at once without a clear hierarchy. So Circle and I would have to decide which concepts to minimize and which to maximize. When deciding on which elements to push or to cut, it helps to decide on one or two really compelling main concepts for your character. You then elevate them to be the stars of the show, while the other concepts are supporting actors that help them shine even brighter. In Lys's case, it was really important to retain her sea slug monster girl nature, but her outfit needed a few changes. So we decided to push her outfit into more of a sporty direction and keep the midriff to show her gills. In turn, some of the more cutesy idol elements would have to be toned down, but I already had a good idea of what to do with them later on. The other concept I really wanted to play up was this electric device around her neck, the regulator. Without it, her voice would irreversibly damage any human in earshot. I think that's a really, really good idea. If it's possible, I'm gonna see if I can play up on this idea of a regulator and make it chunkier and more obvious. That tension is interesting. An idol character who, if not under control, would annihilate all her fans. That's crazy, and that's a really cool idea, so let's see if we can make that idea even stronger. With the stars of the show decided, I would have to rein in those upstaging supporting actors by giving Lys's outfit a complete makeover. And you know what's helpful for designing specific things like clothing? Yep, you guessed it, it's references. Circle had already picked up some good references and clearly had an idea of what he wanted his character to look like. But he said that he wasn't being deliberate enough with the referenced elements and just added some for the sake of it. Applying references to your designs without just copying the reference can be hard. If you feel like you suffer from the same problem, then check out this video in which I explain how to use references for character design. But anyway, to get a better idea for the outfit, I opened up Pinterest. Browsing through some idol outfits, I quickly realized I wanted to attempt a sporty look with some stylish baggy pants. One important part of designing clothing is also considering their original function. In the initial design, Lys wore tights that had an interesting organic look here that was inspired by sea slug biology. So the waistband of these pants were replaced with these organic frills. However, by doing this, the waistband no longer quite looks like they'll be able to hold the pants tight, which actually makes it look less like a piece of sportwear. Adjusting the shape design of existing clothing is often a great idea, but you have to make sure to carefully consider the functionality of whatever it is you're adapting. If your changes make it difficult for the element to fulfill its purpose, it could potentially make it less readable as what it's supposed to be. But that's not the only way to make something readable and clear. You could just make it larger. Because I wanted to make the regulator stand out, I decided to make it much bigger and change the shape design to stick out even more compared to the rest of the design. It looks almost alien. This makes for a nice visual contrast with the rest of the outfit, but also tells us that this device is not something Liz wants to, but has to wear. I also added an amplifier with similar shape language and a microphone cord to establish the connection between the regulator and her voice. Although looking back, I may have overdone this just a little bit. Next, I made these ribbons much smaller to commit to the sporty idol vibe. The plaid ribbons are important to her design, but rather than being large silhouette-defining elements, I turned them into smaller accessories that Liz uses to express her interest in cute things. This also helped with increasing the visual interest around the face area. One of the most important parts of a VTuber is the top half of the design, since that's what people will be looking at during the stream. It has to be visually interesting and distinct. So I added even more accessories to her hair, like hair clips and pins to direct the viewer's eye. A common misconception about character design is that too much detail is a culprit when a design looks busy or is hard to read. But the truth is usually not the amount of details that matters, but rather the lack of areas of rest. If you want to know more about this topic, check out this video. But anyway, I wasn't done just yet. One more thing I did was to add some hip windows to her pants to give some space for her tail to come out. In the previous design, it was kind of unclear to me how the tail interacted with the pants. Small details like these are important to consider when you're designing characters to make them more believable. Now, it's time to add colors. But Circle had already offered to do the rendering himself, and I would never pass up an opportunity to avoid rendering. But look what Circle did! Look at this, look at this! Check it out, it's rendered! Circle did such a good job! Whoa, that's crazy! It's so shiny, right? Does she not look so cute? Yeah, Circle went with the white, which I think is totally fair. I think the white is probably better than blue. So a couple of changes to note. When I saw the rendered version, I thought it was best to remove these little ear bits because I thought it was a little bit too much. So ended up getting rid of them, but yeah, the white was a really good choice. And I love these little blobby elements. I did not do a good job here. Oh, this little pop of red here was a great choice as well. No way a seagull rendered that, a seagull did render this. So I think we can kind of roughly sort of go over the differences between the two. So one thing that's very specific to VTuber model designs is that you want to make sure that the top half, the head and torso, have a lot of interest. So even though Liz with her big ribbon here is very unique and very cool, well, for a VTuber model, it's better to kind of cluster that interest up here at the top because that's what people will be looking at when the VTuber model is streaming. So another thing that I think that I changed from here is that I feel like that there were two themes competing and pulling in opposing directions. We had an idol theme with lots of cute ribbons and bits of jewelry. And there was also the sporty vibe with the leggings and the little pigeon-toed look and these adorable sneakers. So I felt like the problem was that these two themes were kind of at odds with each other and it made the design overall feel a little bit unfocused. There's also a small issue where a lot of details seemed to be added just for detail's sake, and there was not much design thinking put into them. So what I ended up doing here was that I ended up reworking it because I picked one of the themes, sporty versus idol, and I turned it into the main theme so that the design would be more focused and have a direction. And the idol theme, the little ribbons, which are important to her backstory, I also included, but they're secondary to the main theme. Another thing I added here, I wanted to make the inhibitor look a little bit more prominent because I thought that was a really cool detail. Thinking back, I think these spikes down here were a little bit overkill. Maybe I wouldn't have added them, but it's fine. And essentially, yeah, this is the final result and it looks amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to redesign your character Circle. I hope you like the redesign.